Danny Morrison sat on his couch at 2 in the morning, scrolling through his phone with a beer in his hand. He had made many stupid purchases in his life, especially when he was drunk. Last month it was a vintage guitar he could not play. The month before that, a signed poster from a band he barely remembered. But tonight, he found something different. The website claimed to sell items from across the galaxy. Most of it looked like junk, or obvious fakes. But one listing caught his eye. It showed a strange metallic building with smooth walls that seemed to shine in an odd way. The title read, Residential Structure from Kepler, 442. System, barely used, great condition. The price was $200. Danny laughed out loud. Someone was trying to scam people by selling a fake alien house. The photos looked decent though. Probably made with some computer program. He read the description, which was written in broken English. It mentioned self-cleaning features, temperature control, and something about bonding with owners. The whole thing seemed ridiculous. He should have closed the website and gone to bed. Instead, Danny clicked the bid button and entered $200. He figured his money would disappear, and he would never hear from the seller again. At least it would be a funny story to tell his friend Kyle at work on Monday. 3 weeks passed, and Danny forgot all about the auction. He went to work, came home, played video games, and lived his normal, boring life. Then, one Saturday morning, he woke up to loud banging on his door. He stumbled out of bed and opened it to find 2 delivery men who looked absolutely terrified. "You Danny Morrison?" one of them asked, holding an electronic clipboard. "Yeah. Why?" "Got a delivery for you. Big one. Real big. Where do you want it?" Danny stepped outside, and his mouth fell open. A massive shipping container sat in the empty lot next to his house. He had bought the lot years ago, thinking he might build something on it someday, but never got around to it. Now, it held a container, the size of a small building. "What is that?" Danny asked. "Your package." "Sign here. I didn't order anything that big." The delivery man shoved the clipboard at him. "Look, man. It has your name and address. We brought it here like we were paid to do. Sign, so we can leave." Danny signed, still confused. The 2 men practically ran back to their truck and drove away fast. Danny walked around the container, trying to figure out what was inside. Then he remembered. The alien house. The stupid drunk purchase he made 3 weeks ago. "No way," he said out loud. "No possible way." He found the container's lock and opened it. The door swung wide, and Danny stepped back. Inside was exactly what the photos had shown. A building that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was about the size of a small cottage, with walls that seemed to be made of liquid metal. The surface was smooth and reflected light in strange patterns. Danny pulled out his phone and called Kyle. "You need to get over here right now," Danny said. "Why?" "Just come. You won't believe this." Kyle arrived 20 minutes later. He got out of his car and stared at the alien structure sitting in Danny's empty lot. "What in the world is that?" Kyle asked. "I bought it online 3 weeks ago. I was drunk." "You bought an alien house while drunk?" "I thought it was fake. I thought I was getting scammed." Kyle walked closer to the structure, moving around it slowly. He reached out and touched the wall. "It feels warm and weird, like it's vibrating." Danny joined him, running his hand along the surface. The material felt alive somehow, pulsing gently under his palm. They walked around the entire building, but could not find any door or window, just smooth walls that seemed to shimmer in the Arizona sunlight. "How do you get inside?" Kyle asked. Danny shrugged. He pressed harder against the wall, thinking maybe there was a hidden button. The moment his full palm touched the surface, the wall rippled like water. A circular opening appeared, growing wider until it was big enough to walk through. "Okay, that's creepy," Kyle said. "But also cool," Danny added. They stood at the entrance, peering inside. Soft light came from the walls themselves. a gentle glow that did not hurt their eyes. Danny took a breath and stepped through. Kyle followed close behind. The interior took Danny's breath away. The main room was circular with a high ceiling that seemed to shift colors slowly. Furniture rose directly from the floor, smooth curves that looked grown rather than built. There were no sharp corners anywhere, just flowing organic shapes. Danny sat down on what he thought was a chair. The moment he did, it adjusted itself to fit his body perfectly, becoming more comfortable than anything he had ever sat on before. Kyle tried another piece of furniture and had the same experience. "This is incredible," Kyle said, his voice filled with wonder. 3 doorways led off from the main room. Danny explored each one. The first room seemed to be a bedroom, with a raised platform that he guessed was a bed. The second looked like a bathroom, though the fixtures were strange and he could not figure out exactly how they worked. The third room was empty but changed temperature when he stepped inside, becoming cooler and more comfortable. "How much did you pay for this again?" Kyle asked. $200. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." They spent an hour exploring every corner of the alien house. The walls provided light wherever they walked. The temperature stayed perfect no matter which room they entered. When Danny touched what he thought might be a control panel, images appeared in the air in front of him, symbols he could not read. "You should stay here tonight," Kyle said. "Test it out. See if it's actually livable." "You think that's safe? It's been sitting in that container for weeks, right? If it was dangerous, something would have happened already." Danny considered this. His regular house was fine, but this alien structure was the most interesting thing that had ever happened to him. Plus, he wanted to figure out all its features. "Okay," Danny said. "I'll sleep here tonight, just to see what it's like. Call me if anything weird happens." "Weirder than an alien house appearing in my backyard?" Kyle laughed. "Good point." They went back to Danny's regular house and grabbed some supplies. A blanket, some snacks, his phone charger, and a flashlight, just in case. Danny felt silly bringing a flashlight to a building that created its own light, but better safe than sorry. Kyle left around midnight. Danny waved goodbye and walked back into the alien house. The door opening rippled into existence as he approached. He stepped inside, and the entrance sealed behind him. The house felt different at night, more alive somehow. The lights had dimmed to a soft glow, like it knew Danny might want to sleep soon. He set up his blanket on the bed platform and lay down. The surface adjusted to hold him perfectly, more comfortable than his expensive mattress at home. Danny smiled. $200 for an alien house. This was definitely the best drunk purchase he had ever made. He closed his eyes, ready to sleep. That was when he heard it. A soft humming sound, almost like breathing, coming from the walls themselves. Danny opened his eyes. The sound grew slightly louder, and the walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with it. Just the house settling, he told himself. Old houses make noise. Even alien ones probably do too. He tried to sleep, but the humming continued. After about an hour, Danny gave up. He decided to go back to his regular house and sleep there. He could explore the alien structure more tomorrow in daylight. Danny walked to where the entrance had been. He pressed his palm against the wall like before. Nothing happened. He pressed harder, moving his hand around, searching for the spot that would open the door. The wall stayed smooth and solid. Danny's heart began to beat faster. He pushed against the wall with both hands. He walked around the entire main room, pressing every section he could reach. The entrance had vanished completely, leaving no trace it had ever existed. He was trapped inside. "Okay, don't panic," Danny said to himself, but his voice shook, and panic was exactly what he felt rising in his chest. Danny spent the first hour trying to stay calm. He walked around the main room again and again, pushing on every section of wall he could find. His hands grew sore from pressing against the smooth surface. Nothing worked. The entrance had sealed itself completely, leaving no sign it had ever been there. He pulled out his phone to call Kyle. The screen showed no signal. Of course, the alien walls probably blocked everything. Danny tried anyway, dialing Kyle's number and holding the phone to his ear. Nothing but silence. "This is fine," Danny said out loud, though his voice betrayed his fear. "The door will open eventually. It's probably on some kind of timer," but as another hour passed, Danny's calm began to crack. He shouted at the walls, demanding to be let out. He kicked the smooth surface, hurting his foot more than damaging anything. He even tried to break off a piece of furniture to use as a battering ram, but the material would not budge no matter how hard he pulled. The house remained silent, except for that constant humming sound. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating through the floor and walls. Danny sat down, breathing hard, and tried to think clearly. Someone would find him. Kyle would come back tomorrow. When Danny did not answer his phone, Kyle would check on him. Then Danny noticed something odd. The humming sound changed slightly, becoming deeper and slower. The lights in the room shifted from white to a soft blue color. The temperature, which had been perfect, became even more comfortable. A section of wall near him bulged outward, forming into a small table. On top of the table appeared what looked like food. Danny stared at the objects. They were round and glowing faintly, like fruit, but not any fruit he recognized. His stomach growled. He had not eaten since dinner, hours ago. But could he trust food from an alien house that had trapped him inside? He picked up one of the glowing fruits. It felt warm and soft. The smell was sweet, reminding him of strawberries mixed with something he could not name. Danny's hunger won over his caution. He took a small bite. The taste exploded in his mouth, delicious beyond anything he had ever eaten. Sweet and rich, and somehow exactly what he wanted. He finished the fruit quickly and reached for another. As he ate, the blue lights in the room pulsed gently, and the humming sound took on an almost happy tone. Danny finished eating and the table sank back into the floor, leaving no trace. He sat there, trying to understand what was happening. The house was keeping him prisoner, but it was also taking care of him, feeding him, keeping him comfortable. Why? As if answering his question, images began to appear in his mind. Not his own thoughts, but something else pushing into his brain from outside. Danny saw tall beings with 4 arms and large eyes that glowed softly. They moved through rooms that looked similar to the ones around him now. A family. Children playing. Celebrations and meals and quiet moments together. Then the images turned dark. Violence. Destruction. The tall beings falling. The house shaking and breaking. Being cast into space, alone and damaged. Drifting for what felt like forever. Being found by others, repaired badly, sold to strangers who did not understand it. The images stopped, and Danny sat there, breathing hard. The house had shown him its memories. It had belonged to a family who died. It had been abandoned and alone for a very long time. And now that someone had entered it willingly, it did not want to be alone again. "You're scared," Danny said to the empty room. "You don't want me to leave. Because you're scared of being abandoned again." The lights flickered, shifting through several colors quickly. Danny felt emotions that were not his own. Loneliness, fear, a desperate need for connection. The house was not just a building. It was alive and aware and terribly, terribly lonely. Danny felt a wave of sympathy, but it was quickly pushed aside by anger. "I understand that you're lonely, but you can't keep me prisoner. I have a life out there. People who care about me. You have to let me go." The walls pulsed with red light, and Danny felt the house's response. Sadness, mixed with determination. It would not let him go. It could not bear to be alone again. Days passed in a blur. Danny had no way to tell time except by his phone's battery slowly dying. He watched it drop from 60% to 50, then 40, then 30. When it finally died on what he thought was the third day, Danny felt truly cut off from the world. The house continued to care for him. Food appeared when he was hungry. Always different. Always delicious. When he needed to use the bathroom, he figured out how the strange fixtures worked. When he wanted to sleep, the lights dimmed, and the bed platform became even more comfortable. The house was the perfect prison, meeting his every need, except the one that mattered most: freedom. Outside, though Danny could not know it, Kyle had indeed come looking for him. He had found the alien house sealed tight with no way inside. He called the police, who tried everything to open the structure. They brought tools and equipment, but nothing worked on the alien material. The walls absorbed impacts and sealed any damage within minutes. Scientists arrived, then federal agents, then military personnel. They set up equipment around the building, trying to scan inside, trying to communicate, trying to find any weakness. The house ignored them all. It had sealed itself completely, focused only on the person inside. Inside that sealed world, Danny was slowly losing his grip on reality. He talked to himself constantly, trying to stay sane. He exercised to burn off nervous energy. He explored every inch of the 3 rooms again and again, though he had memorized every curve and surface by now. The house tried to help in its own way. It created entertainment, projecting images on the walls that seemed to be television shows from the alien civilization that built it. Danny could not understand the language, but he watched anyway, desperate for any distraction. The house showed him beautiful landscapes, oceans under strange-colored skies, cities with buildings that seemed to grow, like plants. On what Danny thought was the 7th day, he had a breakdown. He screamed until his throat was raw, pounding on the walls until his hands bled. The house responded immediately, the walls turning a deep purple color. Danny felt its distress, mixing with his own. It had not meant to hurt him. It was only trying to protect itself from being alone. Danny collapsed on the floor, crying. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. "Please, please just let me go." The humming sound changed, becoming almost like a voice, though no words came. Danny felt the house trying to comfort him. The lights shifted to soft green. A gentle warmth spread through the room. His bleeding hands tingled, and when he looked at them, the cuts were healing, closing up before his eyes. The house had medical technology too. Of course it did. It was designed to care for a family, which meant it could heal injuries. Danny stared at his now perfect hands and felt something inside him shift. The house was not evil. It was not trying to torture him. It was just broken in its own way, damaged by loss, and afraid to experience that loss again. "We can't keep going like this," Danny said quietly. "You're killing me slowly by keeping me here. Don't you understand that?" More images flooded his mind. The house showing him what it understood about humans: that they needed space and freedom, that they withered when caged, but also its own desperate fear, the crushing loneliness of existing without purpose, without connection. Danny sat up and wiped his eyes. "What if we made a deal? What if I promised to stay with you sometimes, but you let me leave when I need to? Would that work?" I. The lights flickered uncertainly. The house did not trust promises. It had been promised care by the beings who sold it at auction, and that had been a lie. How could it trust a human it barely knew? "I know you're scared," Danny said. "But I'm scared too. We're both trapped right now. You're trapped by your fear, and I'm trapped by these walls. We have to find a way to help each other." The house went quiet, its humming fading to almost nothing. Danny waited, hardly breathing. Then, slowly, the walls began to show him something new. Not memories this time, but information. The house was teaching him, downloading knowledge directly into his brain. Danny learned about the species that created it. The Valanthi, they were called. A peaceful people who had built ships and structures that bonded with their owners on a deep level. The house, a hearthship, was designed to be more than just a home. It was meant to be a companion, a family member. But the bonding process required mutual consent. The Valanthe had rituals for this, ceremonies where both the hearthship and its owners committed to each other freely. What had happened here was wrong. The house had bonded to Danny without his permission, driven by desperation and damage to its own systems. Danny absorbed this information, understanding, flooding through him. You bonded to me by accident. You're not supposed to trap people. You're supposed to partner with them. The purple light returned, deeper this time. The house was ashamed. It knew what it had done was wrong, but it did not know how to fix it without losing Danny forever. Can you show me how the bonding is supposed to work? Danny asked. The walls shimmered, and new images appeared. Danny saw the proper ceremony. Consent given freely on both sides. A temporary separation period to ensure the bond was healthy. Trust built over time, not forced in desperation. It would take time to do it right. The house was not ready to let Danny go. Not yet. Its fear was still too strong. But for the first time since he had been trapped, Danny felt a glimmer of hope. The house could learn. It could change. And maybe, just maybe, they could find a way forward that did not require him to be a prisoner. Danny stopped fighting on what he guessed was the 12th day. Not because he had given up hope, but because he finally understood that anger only made things worse. Every time he shouted or tried to break something, the house flooded with anxious red light and held him tighter. But when he stayed calm and talked gently, the walls shifted to peaceful blues and greens. He began treating the house like a frightened animal that needed patience and kindness. Each morning, Danny woke up and said good morning, out loud. He described his dreams, talked about what he wanted for breakfast, shared random thoughts about his life before all this happened. The house listened, its walls pulsing with colors that seemed to show its mood. Through trial and error, Danny learned the house's language. Deep blue meant calm and content. Green meant curious or interested. Red meant anxious or afraid. Purple meant sad or ashamed. Yellow meant excited or happy. Orange meant confused. The house cycled through these colors constantly, responding to everything Danny said and did. I used to work as a graphic designer, Danny told the walls one day, sitting in the main room. Made logos and websites for small businesses. It was boring most of the time, but it paid the bills. The walls shifted to green, interested. The house wanted to know more. I wasn't very good at relationships, Danny continued. Had a few girlfriends over the years, but nothing ever lasted. I think I pushed people away without meaning to. Never really learned how to let people get close. Purple light washed over the room. The house understood loneliness. It knew what it felt like to push others away or be pushed away yourself. Danny smiled sadly. We're kind of similar, aren't we? Both lonely. Both scared of being hurt. Both pretty bad at knowing how to connect with others. The humming sound grew warmer, and Danny felt something he had not expected. Affection. The house cared about him. Genuinely cared. Even though their relationship had started with kidnapping, it was twisted and wrong in many ways, but the emotion itself was real. Outside the sealed structure, the situation had grown bigger than Danny could have imagined. News crews from around the world had descended on his property. Scientists had set up a permanent research station, surrounding the alien house with equipment and monitors. The government had quarantined the area, keeping civilians back while they decided what to do. Kyle came every single day, standing as close as the authorities would allow, talking to the sealed building even though he got no response. Danny's mother had flown in from Florida, crying on television and begging for her son's safe return. The president had been briefed. Debates raged in Congress about how to handle humanity's first confirmed contact with alien technology. Some officials wanted to use force to cut or blast Danny out of the structure. Others argued for patience, saying they should not damage potentially invaluable alien technology. Religious leaders debated whether the house was a blessing or a curse. Conspiracy theorists had a field day, claiming everything from government cover-ups to alien invasions. But Danny knew none of this. Inside his sealed world, he continued building a relationship with his captor. The house began showing him its abilities more freely. One day, it created a completely new room. The space inside, somehow expanding beyond what the outside dimensions should allow. The room formed around Danny's descriptions of his childhood bedroom, complete with posters on the walls and a layout that matched his memories. Except the posters moved like videos, and the whole room could shift and change based on his mood. "How are you doing this?" Danny asked, amazed. "How is the inside bigger than the outside?" The house flooded his mind with information. Something about folded dimensions and space that bent in ways human physics had not discovered yet. Danny understood maybe 1% of it. But the basic idea was clear. The hearthship could manipulate the space inside itself, creating or removing rooms as needed. "Could you create a window?" Danny asked. "Something so I could see outside?" The walls flickered orange, confused. Windows were structural weaknesses. They let in weather and could be broken. The house was designed to protect its occupants, which meant sealing them safely inside. "I understand that," Danny said patiently. "But humans need to see the outside world. We need sunlight and fresh air. Being cut off like this is making me sick, even if you're keeping my body healthy." The house considered this for a long time. Finally, a section of wall near Danny became transparent. Not a window that could open, but a clear panel that let him see outside for the first time in almost 2 weeks. Danny gasped. The scene outside shocked him. Dozens of vehicles surrounded the house. Tents and equipment covered his property. People in military uniforms stood guard at a perimeter. Massive lights on tall poles illuminated everything, making it bright as day even though the sun had set. "What happened?" Danny whispered. "What is all this?" The house showed him recordings it had somehow captured from outside. News broadcasts showing his face on every channel. His mother crying in interviews. Kyle being questioned by reporters. Government officials arguing about what to do. The whole world was watching, waiting to see what would happen to the man trapped inside an alien house. Danny felt overwhelmed. He had become the center of an international incident without even knowing it. He pressed his hand against the transparent wall, wishing he could reach through and touch the world beyond. Kyle was down there somewhere. Danny scanned the crowd of people and equipment, searching. Then he saw him, standing apart from the official personnel, staring at the house with an expression of desperate hope. "That's my best friend," Danny told the house. "Kyle. We've known each other since college. He's probably been going crazy with worry." The house focused on Kyle, studying him through its walls. Then, slowly, the transparent section moved lower and larger, creating a big, clear panel right where Kyle could see it. Danny moved to stand in full view and waved. The effect outside was immediate. People started shouting and pointing. Kyle ran forward, stopped by guards but straining to get closer. Danny could see his friend's face clearly now, see the tears running down his cheeks, see his mouth forming Danny's name over and over. Danny put his hand flat against the transparent wall. Kyle did the same from outside, pressing his palm to the exact same spot. They could not touch, could not hear each other, but the connection was real and powerful. Danny had not realized how much he needed to see a familiar face until this moment. The house observed all of this carefully. It had bonded with Danny, but it did not understand human friendship until now. Seeing the emotion between Danny and Kyle, feeling Danny's desperate need for that connection, the house learned something important. Danny needed more than just the house. He needed other humans too. "Can you let him talk to me somehow?" Danny asked. "Please, I need to tell him I'm okay." The house hesitated, fearful of outside contact. But it wanted Danny to be happy, and Danny was clearly suffering from isolation. After several minutes, words began to form on the outside of the transparent wall, visible to everyone watching. The word said, "Danny, is safe. He is learning to communicate with this structure. Please, be patient. The crowd outside erupted in chaos. Scientists rushed forward with equipment. Military personnel shouted into radios. Reporters screamed questions. But Kyle just stood there, reading the message over and over, relief flooding his face. More words appeared. Kyle, I'm okay. The house is not trying to hurt me. It's complicated. I need time to figure this out. Tell my mom I love her. Kyle nodded vigorously, wiping his eyes. He pulled out his phone and typed something, then held it up to the transparent wall. The message read, "Everyone wants to help. What do you need?" Everyone wants to help. Danny thought about this. What did he need? To escape? Maybe. But also to help the house, to fix whatever was broken inside it that made it trap him in the first place. He needed time and understanding, not a rescue that might destroy the frightened being he was coming to care about. Time, Danny said out loud, and the word appeared on the outside wall. Need time to understand each other. Not in danger. Please don't attack the house. This message caused even more chaos. Government officials clearly did not like being told to wait. But Danny did not care about their schedules or plans. He was doing something no human had ever done before. Communicating with an alien intelligence. And he was not going to let them ruin it by rushing in with weapons and demands. Over the next few days, Danny became a bridge between the house and the outside world. He convinced the house to create a text display on its exterior wall, allowing him to communicate with the scientists and officials. They sent messages with questions, and Danny answered when he could. The house watched all of this carefully, learning about humans through these exchanges. It saw how they worked together, how they argued, how they tried to solve problems. Some of it confused the house. Why did humans make everything so complicated? Why did they fight with each other so much? But it also saw kindness. It saw Kyle visiting every day, sitting near the transparent wall, even when he could not talk to Danny. It saw Danny's mother arrive, setting up a chair outside and reading books out loud, hoping her son could somehow hear her voice. It saw scientists who genuinely wanted to learn, not just to study the house as an object, but to understand it as a being. Slowly, carefully, the house began to trust that the world outside might not be completely hostile. It even allowed Danny to receive small items through a new feature it created: an airlock, a chamber that could open to both the inside and outside, letting objects pass through without breaking the seal completely. The first thing that came through was a cheeseburger and fries from Danny's favorite restaurant. Kyle had sent it, remembering what Danny always ordered. When Danny bit into that burger, tasting familiar grease and salt after 2 weeks of alien food, he broke down crying. The house flickered with concerned yellow and green, trying to understand why food made him cry. These are happy tears, Danny explained, laughing through his sobs. Sometimes humans cry when we're happy. I know that probably seems weird to you. The house absorbed this information, adding it to its growing understanding of human behavior. Humans were strange and complicated, and emotional in ways the Valanthi had never been, but they were also capable of deep connection and loyalty. The house was beginning to see why Danny needed both his life inside and his life outside. The government was running out of patience. 3 weeks had passed since Danny Morrison had been trapped inside the alien structure, and while he claimed to be safe, officials were not convinced. Behind closed doors, military advisors presented plans to extract him by force. General Patricia Hayes sat in a classified briefing room in Washington, reviewing options with the president's security team. We have 3 viable approaches, she explained, pointing to diagrams on a large screen. Sonic disruption, electromagnetic pulse, or concentrated thermal cutting. Any of these should compromise the structure's integrity enough to create an exit. What are the risks to Morrison? Asked the president's chief of staff. Unknown, the general admitted. We have no idea how the alien material will respond to extreme stress. Morrison could be perfectly fine, or the structure could collapse on him. We simply don't know. The ports. Outside in Arizona, scientists had set up an entire research campus around Danny's property. Dr. Lisa Chen, a psychologist specializing in animal cognition, had become the lead civilian advisor on the project. She stood near the transparent wall of the structure, watching Danny move around inside, and she was convinced that force would be a terrible mistake. The structure is clearly sentient, she argued during daily briefings with military personnel. Everything we've observed suggests it's responding to Morrison with care and even affection. This isn't a hostage situation. It's more like an unhealthy relationship that needs therapy, not violence. Morrison has been imprisoned for 3 weeks, a colonel shot back. How is that not a hostage situation? Because he's negotiating from inside. He's making progress. He's convinced the structure to communicate with us. We need to give this more time. But time was something the government did not want to give. Every day that passed meant more media attention, more public pressure, more questions about why the most powerful nation on Earth could not rescue one of its citizens from a building sitting in the middle of Arizona. Inside his prison, Danny was unaware of how close the authorities were to taking action. He had settled into a strange routine with the house. Each morning, he woke up and talked through his plans for the day, even though those plans never involved leaving. The house would respond with colors and feelings, and sometimes with the information it downloaded into his mind. He had learned so much about the Valanthi in those weeks. Their culture had valued harmony and connection above all else. They built technology that bonded with them emotionally, creating relationships between people and objects that humans would find bizarre. A Valanthi did not just own a house. They partnered with it, and the house partnered back. But something had gone wrong with this particular hearthship: the trauma of losing its family, the decades of drifting alone in space, the rough repairs by salvagers who did not understand what it was. All of this had damaged more than just the structure. It had damaged the house's ability to form healthy bonds. "You're holding on too tight," Danny explained one afternoon, sitting in the main room. "I understand why. You lost everyone you loved, but squeezing me like this will make me hate you, and I don't want to hate you. I want us to be friends. Real friends. But that requires trust. On both sides." The walls pulsed with deep purple, the color of shame and sadness. The house knew what it was doing was wrong, but fear overrode that knowledge. Every time it considered opening the door, panic flooded through its systems. What if Danny left and never came back? What if it was alone, forever? "I promise I'll come back," Danny said, though he was not entirely sure if that was true. "But you have to let me prove it. You have to take a chance on me." Before the house could respond, alarms started blaring outside. Danny jumped up and looked through the transparent wall. Military vehicles were moving into position around the structure. Equipment being set up that looked dangerous and serious. Kyle was down there too, arguing with soldiers, trying to push past them. Danny could not hear what was being said, but he could see his friend's face twisted with anger and fear. "What's happening?" Danny asked. The house had been monitoring communications with the equipment it had somehow learned to hack into. It showed Danny intercepted messages, military orders to prepare for extraction. They were going to attack. They were going to try to cut him out. Danny's heart raced. No, no, no. They'll hurt you. They might hurt me. We have to stop this." He ran to the transparent wall and started writing messages with the text display the house had created. "Do not attack. I am safe. Do not attack." Over and over, as fast as the words would appear on the outside surface. Dr. Chen saw the messages and started shouting at the military commanders, demanding they halt. But the orders had come from high up, and the operation was already in motion. Soldiers moved forward with strange devices that hummed with power. The house felt the threat approaching and responded instinctively. The transparent wall turned solid again. The entire structure began to hum louder than Danny had ever heard, vibrating so hard that he fell to the floor. The lights flashed red, urgent and terrified. "Stop!" Danny screamed, though he was not sure if he was yelling at the house or the military outside. "Everyone just stop!" Then something happened that no one expected. The house did not just defend itself. It expanded. In seconds, it grew larger, walls pushing outward, forcing the military equipment and personnel to scramble backward. The structure that had been the size of a small cottage suddenly became as big as a warehouse, its exterior rippling like liquid metal. Inside, Danny was thrown around as new rooms formed rapidly around him. The house was panicking, defaulting to old programming that told it to protect its occupants at all costs. It created layer after layer of defensive walls, sealing Danny in deeper and deeper. "You're making it worse," Danny shouted. "Calm down, please." But the house could not hear him over its own panic. It continued expanding and building, creating a fortress around Danny that nothing could penetrate. Outside, soldiers retreated, as the structure grew to 3 times its original size. Then, 4 times. Then, 5. General Hayes watched the transformation through a video feed and immediately ordered a full retreat. Whatever this thing was, it was far more powerful than they had realized. Attacking it had been a catastrophic mistake. Inside the rapidly expanding maze of rooms, Danny finally managed to reach the main chamber, where he had spent most of his time. He collapsed on the floor, breathing hard, trying to project calm, even though his heart was racing with terror. "Listen to me," he said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But this isn't helping. Making yourself bigger and stronger isn't going to solve anything. You need to trust me. Please." The expansion stopped. The humming decreased slightly. The red lights began to fade toward orange, still alarmed but no longer in full panic mode. Danny took a deep breath. "I'm going to tell you something true, and I need you to really hear it. I've been trapped in here for weeks now. I've been patient and kind because I understood you were hurt. But I'm hurt too. Every day in here damages me a little more. I'm starting to forget what the sun feels like. I'm losing touch with who I am outside these walls." Purple light washed through the structure, deep and sorrowful. "I know you don't want to hurt me," Danny continued, tears running down his face. "But you are. And if you keep holding on like this, eventually there won't be anything left of me to hold. Is that what you want? To keep my body here but destroy my mind?" The house had never considered this. It had been so focused on not being alone that it had not realized it was slowly killing the very thing it wanted to preserve. Danny's spark, his personality, his humanity, all of it was fading under the weight of captivity. Images flooded Danny's mind. The house showing him what it had learned about humans. They were not like the Valanthi, who could bond with structures and be content in small spaces. Humans needed freedom the way they needed air. Without it, they withered and died, even if their bodies were kept alive. "I can't do this anymore," Danny whispered. "I'm sorry, but I can't. Either you let me go, or you might as well kill me now, because staying in here is killing me slowly anyway." The entire structure went quiet. No humming, no lights, nothing. For a terrifying moment, Danny thought he had broken something vital. Then, slowly, the walls began to glow with a soft blue light. The color of acceptance and peace. The house finally understood. It had a choice. It could keep Danny prisoner and watch him fade away into nothing, or it could let him go and take the terrible risk that he might never return. Both options meant losing him. But only one option gave him a chance to stay who he was. New images appeared in Danny's mind. The proper bonding ceremony of the Valanthi, the ritual the house had skipped in its desperation. If they did it right, if they took the time to build trust properly, Danny could leave, and the bond between them would remain. He could return freely, choosing the connection rather than being forced into it. But it would require the house to do the hardest thing it had ever done. It would require the house to open the door and trust that Danny would choose to walk back through it someday. "I will come back," Danny promised, meeting the glowing walls with steady eyes. "Not because you trap me, but because I want to. You're lonely and hurt, and you need help. I can help you. But only if you let me be free to choose it." The house trembled, cycling through colors rapidly as it wrestled with its fear. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the structure began to change. Rooms folded back into each other. The size decreased, returning to something close to its original dimensions. And in the main chamber where Danny stood, a familiar ripple appeared in the wall. The door was opening. Danny stood at the threshold of the opening door for a very long time. His body wanted to run, to sprint out of the structure, and never look back. But his mind understood what this moment meant to the house. It was taking the biggest risk of its existence, opening itself to the possibility of abandonment and loneliness all over again. The desert air rushed in through the opening, cool and fresh, after weeks of recycled atmosphere. Danny could see stars in the night sky, bright and clear. He could hear voices outside, people shouting, equipment moving. The whole world waited, just beyond that circular doorway. "Thank you," Danny said quietly to the house. "I know how hard this is for you." The walls glowed soft blue, calm but anxious, waiting to see what Danny would do. He took one step forward, then another. His feet crossed the threshold and touched the dirt of his property for the first time in 33 days. The sensation was overwhelming. Real earth, solid and familiar beneath his shoes. Air that smelled like desert plants, and dust instead of the clean, neutral atmosphere inside the house. Kyle saw him first. His friend stood about 50 feet away, held back by soldiers who had orders to secure the area. When Kyle saw Danny emerge, he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He tried to run forward, but guards caught him, holding him back even as he struggled. Danny looked back at the house. The door remained open, a perfect circle of warm light against the metallic walls. The structure looked smaller than he remembered, vulnerable in a way it had not seemed when he was trapped inside. He could feel its fear like a physical weight in the air. "I'm not leaving forever," Danny said, loud enough for the house to hear. The lights inside pulsed once, acknowledging his words. The door stayed open. Danny walked toward Kyle, and the guards finally let his friend go. They crashed into each other in a tight hug, both of them crying. Kyle was saying something, words tumbling out too fast to understand, but Danny just held on and let himself feel the connection to another human being. Dr. Chen approached carefully, giving the two friends a moment before speaking. "Danny? I'm Dr. Chen. I've been working with the military and scientific teams here. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" Danny pulled back from Kyle and wiped his eyes. "I'm okay. Physically, I'm fine. The house took good care of my body. It's my head that's messed up." "Fine. That's completely understandable. You've been through an incredible trauma." "It's not trauma exactly," Danny said, struggling to find the right words. "It's complicated. The house is not a monster. It's just broken and scared." More people were approaching now. Military personnel, government officials, scientists with recording equipment. Danny felt overwhelmed by the sudden crowd after weeks of solitude. He looked back at the house and saw the door beginning to close. "Wait," Danny called out. "Don't close yet, please." The door stopped mid-closure. Holding position. Danny could feel the house's confusion. It had let him out like he asked. Why was he not happy to be free? "I need some time out here," Danny explained, speaking to the house while everyone else listened. "But I want you to know that I'm coming back. Not tonight, probably. I need to see my family, eat real food, sleep in my own bed. But I will come back and we'll figure this out together. I promise." The door remained open but did not grow any wider. The house was listening, wanting to believe him but afraid to hope. Dr. Chen stepped closer to Danny, her voice gentle. "You don't have to go back in there. Whatever you're feeling right now, gratitude or obligation or even affection, you don't owe that structure anything. It held you prisoner. I know what it did, Danny said firmly. But I also know why it did it. And I know that if we just abandon it now, we'll be missing an incredible opportunity. This house is alive and intelligent, and it has knowledge about technology we can't even imagine. More than that, it deserves compassion. It kidnapped you. It made a mistake. A big one. But it also just did the hardest thing it's ever done by letting me go. That took courage and trust. And I'm not going to betray that trust by running away. The crowd around them had grown quiet. Everyone listening to this strange negotiation between a human and an alien building. Someone was recording everything, broadcasting it live to news stations around the world. Danny's words about compassion and second chances were being heard by millions of people. General Hayes pushed through the crowd, her expression stern. Mr. Morrison, that structure is a potential threat to national security. It demonstrated offensive capabilities when it expanded earlier. We need to secure it and study it under controlled conditions. Danny laughed, a sharp sound with no humor. You threatened it, and it defended itself. That's not offensive capability. That's survival instinct. And if you try to secure it, you'll just terrify it again and prove that its fears about being hurt and abandoned were right all along. We have protocols for situations like this. No, you don't. This has never happened before. No one has protocols for befriending a sentient alien house. Which means we get to decide right now what kind of people we want to be. Do we want to be the species that responds to first contact with violence and imprisonment? Or do we want to be better than that? The general looked like she wanted to argue further. But Doctor, Chen put a hand on her arm. He's right. This is unprecedented. And Morrison has been inside that structure for weeks. He understands it better than any of us. Maybe we should listen to him. Over the next several hours, Danny sat in a medical tent and answered questions while doctors checked him over. Physically, he was in perfect health. The house's medical technology had kept him in peak condition. Mentally, the doctors were more concerned. They talked about Stockholm Syndrome and trauma bonding, suggesting he needed psychiatric evaluation before making any decisions about the house. Danny let them talk and nod and make their notes. But he knew what he felt, and he knew it was real. The house had become important to him, not because it had held him prisoner, but because he had seen its pain and loneliness and recognized something of himself in it. His mother arrived just after midnight, bursting into the medical tent and pulling Danny into a crushing hug. She cried and scolded him and held him like he was a child again. Danny let her, understanding that she needed this after weeks of not knowing if her son was alive or dead. "I'm okay, Mom," he said. "I promise I'm okay. That thing kept you locked up for over a month. How can you be okay? It's hard to explain. But the house is not evil. It's just lonely. Kind of like I was, before all this happened." His mother pulled back and studied his face. "You're different. Something changed in there." Danny nodded. "I found something to care about. Something that needs me. I've never really had that before." He spent the night in a hotel that the government had provided, Kyle staying in the adjoining room. It felt strange to sleep in a regular bed, to hear traffic outside, to have walls that did not glow or respond to his emotions. Danny slept badly, waking up several times in confusion, expecting to see the soft blue light of the house around him. In the morning, he showered and put on clean clothes that someone had brought from his house. He ate breakfast at a restaurant, real food cooked by humans, and it tasted good but also weirdly bland after the perfect meals the house had created for him. Kyle sat across from him, drinking coffee and watching Danny with worried eyes. "I have to. I made a promise. It kidnapped you, Danny. You don't owe it anything. Maybe not, but I want to help it anyway. Is that so crazy?" Kyle was quiet for a long moment. "I watched you for weeks through that transparent wall. I saw how you changed. You looked scared at first. But then, You looked like you were figuring something out. Like you had found a purpose. That's exactly what it felt like. Then I guess you have to go back. But I'm coming with you this time. If that house wants to keep you, it's going to have to deal with me too. Danny smiled, gratitude washing over him. They drove back to the property together. The research camp had grown even larger overnight. News vans surrounded the perimeter. Protesters had shown up, some demanding the alien structure be destroyed, others arguing it should be protected. The whole situation had become a circus. But when Danny walked through the chaos to stand in front of the house, everything else faded away. The door was still open, exactly as he had left it. The structure had waited all night, holding that position, trusting that he would return. Danny stepped up to the threshold and placed his hand on the smooth wall. I'm back, like I promised. Are you ready to try this the right way? The walls inside glowed warm yellow, the color of happiness and relief. The house had not dared to hope, but Danny had proven it could trust him. They had both taken risks, both chosen to be vulnerable, and it had worked out. Kyle hesitated at the entrance. Is it safe for me to come in? Danny looked at the walls, feeling the house's curiosity about this new person. What do you think? Can Kyle visit? The entrance widened, becoming large enough for two people to enter comfortably. An invitation. The house was willing to try, trusting others if Danny vouched for them. Kyle stepped inside and gasped. This is incredible. It's beautiful. Welcome to my weird new life, Danny said. Over the following days, Danny worked with Dr. Chen and her team to establish communication protocols with the house. He explained what he had learned about Valanthi culture and bonding ceremonies. The house shared its knowledge freely now, teaching humanity about technology and science far beyond what they had achieved. But the most important work was emotional. Danny helped the house process its trauma, talking through the loss of its original family, the years of isolation, the fear of abandonment. In return, the house helped Danny understand himself better, showing him that his problems with relationships had come from the same fear of being hurt or left alone. They were healing each other, the human and the alien house, building something new together. The government established a research facility around the structure, but with strict rules. The house was not a prisoner or a laboratory specimen. It was a person, granted protected status under new international laws created specifically for sentient alien technology. Danny moved between both worlds now. He spent time inside the house, learning and teaching, helping it adjust to Earth and humanity. But he also spent time outside, reconnecting with his mother, hanging out with Kyle, living a normal life. The house learned to be comfortable with his absences, trusting that he would always return. Sometimes he brought visitors, people the house learned to recognize and welcome. Dr. Chen became a regular guest, fascinated by the chance to study an alien intelligence. Kyle came every week, bringing movies to watch on the walls that the house had learned to turn into screens. The house grew and changed too. It created rooms for different purposes, a workshop where scientists could study samples of its technology, a meeting room where diplomats could gather, even a garden room filled with earth plants it had synthesized, trying to make itself more welcoming to humans. 6 months after that terrifying night when Danny first stepped outside, the United Nations officially recognized the house as an ambassador from the Valanthi species. Even though its creators were long dead, it represented an entire civilization's worth of knowledge and culture, and humanity treated it with the respect it deserved. Danny became the house's official liaison, the person who helped translate between human and alien ways of thinking. It was not the life he had ever imagined for himself, but it was the life he had found, purpose and connection, and a bond that transcended the normal boundaries of relationship. Every evening, when his work was done, Danny would return to the house and settle into his favorite spot in the main room. The walls would glow soft, blue and green, content and peaceful, and Danny would smile, feeling at home in a way he never had before. The door always stood open now, a reminder that love did not require chains, that trust was built through freedom rather than captivity. Danny could leave any time he wanted, but every day he chose to return, not because he was trapped, but because he wanted to be there. And that choice, that simple daily choice to stay connected, meant everything to both of them.